Well, welcome everyone. I saw some of you here last year, so some of you know that my background is in kind of the neuroscience of potential and how we bring out the best in our people and our talent. That's what I research on, that's what my books are on, and I've also been a chief learning officer for lynda.com, which is now part of LinkedIn. So our pathway this morning, we're going to look at what is the science of potential, and then we're going to really get into how does that play out with how you attract, keep, and lose talent. You're going to hear from Jack in a few minutes after I go. He's going to do a deeper dive into what's happening within the agency space. And we know that attrition is a problem. We're losing talent. Sometimes they come back and boomerang back to you, but sometimes they don't. So you're going to get a deeper dive into that. And then we're going to give you some tips and strategies about what you can do differently to keep your best talent. How can you retain them? So people, we're really looking at the science of potential here. And potential is the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. It's unrealized ability. And every single one of you is sitting on a gold mine. You have talent that is not at their full potential. None of us are, because even when you're at peak performance, there's still something you can do to grow, get better, learn, become even more of who you are. And the real secret sauce here is if you can create an environment where employees feel like they're supported in achieving their potential, your agency will not only thrive, but your talent will become your best brand ambassadors. They will love your agency. They will stay at your agency. And here's why. We are wired as biological beings to do three things. And this all comes from the neuroscience and biology of humans. We are wired to survive, belong to a meaningful community, and to become our best selves. So this, you can't get around this. You can't hire differently than this. This is just how humans show up. But if you understand how humans show up, you can flex your talent management strategies to not only bring out the best in them, but to also leverage our natural desire to get better, our natural hunger to improve and grow. So when we think about survival, what does that look like in today's modern workplace? Well, really, it starts with comp and benefits. How much am I going to get paid? Can I pay for food and shelter? Can I pay for the things that are meaningful to me and my family? Healthcare. Can I have access to the kind of healthcare I want? Shelter. Can I afford my rent? Can I pay my mortgage? Can I live in the life that I would like to live in with my family? And safety. Hopefully, ad agencies are not an unsafe place to work. This is obviously a bigger consideration if you go into manufacturing or something like that. But people look for physical and emotional safety. And we're going to hear more about psychological safety today from the folks at Google. Really interesting research and developments coming out in that area. The second thing that we're driven to do, and we don't really focus on it until our safety needs are met, is belonging. We all hunger to belong to a community. In fact, we're wired to do so because it helps our chances for survival. So going back to our hunter-gatherer days, we know that we do better when we're part of teams. We want to be part of teams. We want to be part of something that we can belong with and where we work together to accomplish something else. Inclusion and diversity is a big part of this. Do I feel like who I am, my authentic whole self, matters? Can I show up and be my authentic self, or do I have to hide parts of myself to work in this environment? And certainly, can we appreciate the diversity of all the different ways that we show up and are in the world? And we also search for culture. Is the culture of the organization one that I can thrive in? Does it align with my values? Does it align with who I am? Those are going to be all things that people are sorting for in the belong part of their search. And then we come to become. We all hunger to grow and develop. Today's employees really focus on career growth. What are the career paths? Are there career paths? How am I going to be helped in achieving more and becoming more? What does learning and development look like? Do they invest in it? Do I have easy access to it? What does that look like for me? Am I going to have those opportunities to grow myself? And am I going to get coaching? Am I going to get help being better, or am I only going to learn about it on the performance review? If I get helped in being better and I have people who invest and care about me, I'm going to feel like that's a better culture match. So humans are doing this all day, every day. And when your talent is happy, you get all kinds of goodies. You get engagement. We're going to talk more about what that gets you in a minute. They're more productive. They're going to be more loyal. They're going to be more creative and innovative in the workplace. And they're going to be your best brand ambassadors. Getting your best talent for next year totally ties to how your talent today is feeling about working for you. When they're not happy, you get all kinds of crap. They're going to be disengaged. That plays out in all kinds of ways. You're going to have attrition, particularly of your best talent. Shrinkage, that's a fancy word for stealing the office supplies, and it adds up, let me tell you. They're also going to abuse benefits. Not just use them, they're going to really abuse them in a way that's very costly to you. And you're going to have problems with safety and quality. They're going to act out. So let's look at how we can now apply this to kind of the three phases. So attracting talent. And I love that we've already started with Wendy's metaphor of having a baby. So now we're going before the baby, the dating phase, okay? So when we engage in a relationship with attracting talent, we're really in the process of wooing them, right? It's not unlike dating. So let's look at what we do when we woo them. We woo them with our employer brand, how we write about ourselves, how we market ourselves, how we talk about ourselves in LinkedIn. We also woo them with what kind of comp and benefits they're going to see. And benefits I'm using broadly, not just healthcare, learning and development, perks, all those kinds of things. And they're going to also be exploring culture. So you say how your culture is. They're definitely going to read all that stuff. But they're going to do a deeper dive. They're going to look at who used to work with you on LinkedIn. You can search for that on LinkedIn. Who used to work at these places? They're going to reach out. They're going to read the reviews on Glassdoor. And ultimately, they're going to also assess you based on how they experience the interview and hiring process, right? Because it's a demonstration of your culture. How well are your managers doing that? How well are they leading that experience for them? All of this leads to the promise. The promise of, if you accept this job, you're going to get a certain kind of experience with us. And when employees say yes, they have believed the promise. And we know that the promise touches every stage of the employee life cycle. So not only in the attracting part, but onboarding them, developing them, helping them grow, and even when they exit. The exit is totally affects how they felt about the promise. That makes sense. So let's look at a couple things that people are looking for when they're making a choice. This is some research from the Conference Board, and they've got a document called the DNA of Engagement. If you haven't looked at it yet, you should download it. But they have this model where they talk about that there's 4 key quadrants that employees are looking for when they're looking for their match. They're looking for a purpose match. And we're going to get more into purpose in our 2 days here. They want to feel pride for working there. They want to be able to tell their friends and family, I work at this agency, and that makes me feel good. I have pride in that. They're going to want a personal fit match. That's the values, inclusion alignment. And they're going to want a passion match. I get paid for doing what I love to do and what I'm great at. And better yet, they help me get better at it. Those are the 4 things people are searching for. And this plays out again in all kinds of ways that we're going to touch on these 2 days. It touches the onboarding experience, what opportunities look like for women, what opportunities are created for innovation and creativity. Certainly, what's the purpose? What's the psychological safety in this organization? What's happening in this new gig economy? And certainly whether I'm going to boomerang back if I leave, if there's a coaching culture, what opportunities I have for mobility, and how inclusion and diversity play out. These are the themes that we're going to focus in on these 2 days. They are all so important. So Singleton and I have been working on creating a story arc for you where each piece of the puzzle is going to slot in with each speaker. So you're going to get pieces on each of these. And some of them are going to resonate more as hot spots for you than others, than the person sitting next to you. But together they create a total picture. So let's talk about keeping your talent, the honeymoon phase. They said yes. Engagement begins. Okay, I love the fact that it's the word engagement. It's not unlike having an engagement ring. People come in your door engaged. That's why they said yes. So they come in high on engagement. And then what happens after that is on you. Okay, so they come in, they have their onboarding experience. They learn what the stated values and norms are. And then they start to see, well, what really happens, right? They look to their leaders. They look to the managers. They look to their peers. What behavior is rewarded? What behavior is ignored? Do we really have a culture of creativity and safety, or is it a culture of fear and power is held by a few people that really kind of terrorize everybody else? I'm seeing nods yes. Okay, you'll want to work on that. Ultimately, what they experience is the real culture. And how far off it is from what you stated it would be. That's the alignment piece. So they're looking for alignment to the process, or excuse me, to the promise, and it either looks like it's aligning or it starts to look like it's not aligning. Make sense? Okay, so I want to give you 2 minutes to just try this on. Grab a partner, or if you're in a triad, that's fine too, but you have 2 total minutes between you. Just talk through, do you think there's alignment? Do you think what you promise and what they get is aligned? And if you're not sure, think to what they say on exit interviews, the folks who leave, what you see in your engagement surveys, who comes to HR, employee relations, and what are they telling you? 2 minutes to kind of look at, do you have alignment? I'm going to count you down at the end because there may not be a ding on this. So let's dive in a little bit to what is engagement. I like to refer to Gallup study because their data is the most robust. They have done studies for so long and have so many different industries that I find theirs to be kind of the benchmark. If you have not yet seen their 2 reports, the State of the American Workplace and the State of the Global Workplace, get them, good downloads, easy reads. But what they've come up with is that there's 3 levels of engagement. The first is engaged employees. And these folks work with passion and they feel a profound connection to the place they work. They show up, they work hard, they bring innovation and creativity with them. You're going to love these employees. They usually come in the door this way. Then there's the not engaged. Okay, these folks are essentially checking out. They're showing up, they're doing a decent job, but you're not getting their A game. They're not bringing energy, they're not bringing passion. They're kind of just wandering through the day and taking their paycheck. And then you have the actively disengaged. They're angry and they're bitter, and they're taking everyone else down with them. This group of folks, it's really hard to turn them. The question you want to ask yourself is, can we have them exit as quickly as possible to contain the damage that they do? The real focus, though, is can you take the group in the middle, the not engaged, and get them engaged? And the reason what you want to do that is here's what it looks like in America. 30% of our workforce is engaged. 52, a little more than half, is not engaged. And then the actively disengaged is 18%. So if you can take that half and even get a few of them engaged, you will change the entire outcome for your organization. So that's where you want to play. Globally, it's even more dismal. Only 13% of employees are engaged at work if we take into account the global picture. And why do you want engagement? Well, all the key performance indicators are completely aligned with it. All the bad stuff goes down when you have an engaged workplace, and all the good stuff goes up. So the bad stuff that goes down is absenteeism, turnover, attrition, shrinkage, that's the stealing of the office supplies, quality and safety issues. All of that goes down when they're happy and engaged. And the good stuff, their relations with customer satisfaction, productivity, profitability, all go up. So engagement is what we're chasing. And it's not that hard to chase it. Humans are pretty predictable. Couple more shocking, statistics for you. McLean & Company has identified that engaged employees are 127% more likely to be A performers than C performers. Highly engaged organizations have the potential to decrease employee turnover by 87%. That matters because we know to replace an employee is 50 to 250% of their salary and benefits. 50% for an entry-level worker, 250% for high-level or highly technically skilled. And disengaged employees cost the organization $3,400 for every 10,000. It's roughly 34% of their salary. That's the actively disengaged because they're stealing the chips and the clips, as I like to call it. So let's see what this looks like in agencies. I actually did some research on kind of average agency size and income. And so this is the real numbers if we were to take the agency industry as a whole. Roughly headcount in agencies is around 750. If you take the actively disengaged number of 18%, that's 135 employees. The median salary is $60,000 a year. You can totally do this math with what's true for your agency. If you take 34% of that, the cost per disengaged employee is $20,400 per year. Multiply that by 135, bam, almost $3 million in disengaged per year. It's not a joke. It's a serious problem, and it's one that you want to focus in on. So how do they get disengaged? I want to take you through the 10 steps to disengagement and departure. This is the research of Lee Branham. And they arrived engaged. So they were happy, they said yes, and now we move into the breakup phase, right? So how many of you have ever broken up or been broken up with? Show of hands in your lifetime. Okay, there's a few lucky people who are just not telling the truth. So you don't wake up one morning and say, it's over. right? It's a psychological process where you kind of weigh your pros and cons, you try, you beg, you plead, you threaten, you do a bunch of stuff before you come to the breakup. You enter counseling, you know, there's all kinds of stuff you do. Employees are the same. They start the job with enthusiasm and they want to hang out there, but something happens. And something happens, it puts them onto the stair step down. I'm questioning whether this is the place I should be. Now, what causes that question? There's three primary things that happen that cause the question. The first is another promise looks better, right? Somebody else is wooing them. And they're and LinkedIn, I hate to say it, made this really easy. The passive recruit, so they can easily find out what's going on in other places. But another promise just looks more tempting. You know, you just have to be up on what the competitors are offering to handle this one. But sometimes they are wooed by somebody else. More often than not, it's that the promise changes. So this can be a slow promise change, like over, 2 or 3 years, just things shift, the culture shifts, and the promise just doesn't get delivered anymore. There could be something sudden, like a merger and acquisition that completely changes things quickly, or it can just be slow little changes that change the promise. And so it's just not going to work anymore. And then probably the worst one is the broken promise. How you sold your culture is not at all what they experienced. And let me tell you, that's the worst one, because when they finally figure it out, they're angry and they're pissed because they've been betrayed. And so you're going to see more of that acting out disengaged behavior if they feel like the fall was pretty great and they felt things were misrepresented to them. So they start to consider quitting, and employees will give you a chance to fix it. Most employees send clues 2 or 3 times, typically to their manager, to say, it's not working. Some will be very direct and say, hey, it's not working. Others will give indirect hints. You'll see things like lateness, more sick days. They'll physically disconnect. You'll see them not as engaged in meetings and one-on-ones, that kind of thing. They'll certainly be brutally honest on an engagement survey, and they may be going to HR, employee relations, to talk about it. Some are very vocal, some are not, but they will give you a chance to pick it up. Are your managers trained to look for those clues? Do they know what to do when they get one of those clues? Do they know how to fix it? Or do they make it worse? That all lives in your management training. Then they resolve to quit, okay? After you decide to quit, then you go, well, wait a minute, can I afford to quit right now? Oh, wait, I got that vacation coming. Oh, I should wait 3 months. Or I'm working on this really cool ad. It's about to come out. I want that in my portfolio. I'm going to wait. Then they passively seek another job. Many will get jobs at that stage. They prepare to actively seek another job. And then depending on how pissed off they are, this is where they go into that mentality of, I'm going to get my share from this place. If it's a broken promise, they are going to be maxing out retirement, maxing out perks and benefits, abusing them on some level, and you're going to see a lot of the chips and clips disappear, right? If they were feeling like, oh, it's just that somebody else is wooing me, they won't necessarily have this, I need to get my share out of this place. And then they actively seek another job, and finally they leave. Or worse, they quit in their head, but they keep coming to work. The quit and stay is the most dangerous employee. Now, there is a zone of influence. It gets smaller over time, but your manager should know how to influence these employees in the zone and be partnered with you on saving your best talent. If some of them are leaving and you want them to leave, that's okay, let it ride, but it's your best talent. A few more things to look at in engagement. Conference Board did a study on in 2016, so the most recent data on engagement is that the most engaged region is the South, followed by the West, then the Northeast, and then the Midwest. By size, engagement is highest in small organizations, and it has the biggest decline in medium size, typically because the smalls became medium, right? And that shifts the culture considerably. By industry, the most engaged industries are enterprise management, real estate, and construction. Ad agencies are somewhere in the middle. The bottom 3 are like public administration, nonprofits, that kind of thing. By gender, men are more engaged than women. By generation, boomers are the most engaged, followed by the youngest millennials, the under 25. And I think that that's just enthusiasm from I graduated from college and I got my first job engagement. So I think that as they have that kind of realizing what real work is like, that shifts. And then by position, entry and mid-level employees focus the most on organizational investment in employee success. So your mid-level and your entry-level employees are really looking for, how does this org invest in me? What are the learning and development opportunities? Is this a coaching culture? Those are the things that matter most to them. So how do you have strategies for keeping your talent? There's lots of things you can do. McLean and Company have some really great data on engagement, and they've identified this model where you can see that there's lots of things that drive engagement, and then they've separated into job engagement and organizational engagement. But learning and development is one of the drivers. And what's powerful about learning and development is it actually touches all the others. So if you get learning and development right, you get managers right. If you get learning and development right, you get onboarding right. You can start to have this, well, if you do it right, it'll have a domino effect across all these other areas. So what do you want to do? I want you to invest in your learning and development. Oops, that's supposed to animate on later. Sorry about that. So first of all, it's going to boost engagement. It's going to create a culture of continuous improvement or growth mindset. That's where employees know that it's my job to get better. I have to invest in myself. I have to put in the work in growing and improving. You're also going to get better managers. So if you put the right kind of time and energy into management training, a lot of the other problems shift because the real engagement relationship lives at the manager-employee level. And then finally, you're going to want to use best practices in learning and development, which is the flipped classroom, blended learning, on-demand learning, that kind of thing. And if you want some more information, that's what I've written my whole book on, is how do we create learning and development to really maximize the most out of people. A second thing you can do is develop your managers. And management philosophies shift over time, and what is reflected in the culture shifts over time. Here's where we are on the timeline of management philosophy. We are exiting, we're kind of half straggled between collaborative management as a philosophy and moving into network of teams. What we're realizing now is it's not just individual employees that we want to work with, it's really this idea of everyone's working in teams. And so how do we really maximize our culture to be a team-driven culture? And we teach managers how to bring out the best in the team, not managing individual players. And this ties directly into what Wendy is saying. This is that, can they play nice together, right? Well, your management training have flexed and shifted to reflect this new focus on teams and collaboration and networks of teams. And one more thing I want to say on that, psychological safety and trust is at the core of that. And so that's why we want to really make sure you hone in on that today when we talk about it. Third thing, create a coaching culture. People are looking for it. And it's easy to do. The top three things that organizations say when they're focusing on this is they want to integrate coaching into their talent management philosophy and strategy. They want to use it to develop leaders and managers to be coaches so that they know how to coach employees. And finally, they want to include coaching behaviors in performance expectations. So those are the top three ways. Again, the conference board has a really nice report on this. And organizations are using external coaching. Again, the top three things here is development-focused coaching, 360s and other assessment tools, and performance-focused coaching. And then some organizations are investing in internal coaches, same top three. Okay, so coaching is a thing. You can train people to be fantastic coaches. Are you? Are you? And are you weaving that into how you evaluate people? Are you evaluating your managers by how well their team is growing and developing, how well they're cultivating the potential of their people? Fourth strategy you can play with is invest in talent mobility. PwC has a report on talent mobility, and what we're finding is that more and more employees, and again, I think this goes back to Wendy's point about how connected we are, more and more of them want an international experience. They want to be able to work globally. They want to be able to take their work to another country or another culture and still be productive and contribute. So how can you play with that? This is the pattern that they're looking for in 2020, or what they're predicting for 2020. And you can see like a lot of people are moving out of Australia into Southeast Asia and into Europe in terms of their desired locations. And when we go country by country, you'll see that at the lowest, it's 69% of employees say they want to work internationally. At the highest, it's 93%. Are you even thinking about it? What would that look like in your organization? And then there's another way to think about mobility, which is, can you make things mobile, right? Can they access what they need on their smartphone? Employees now want their employee experience to be at their fingertips 24/7. They want apps where they can go in and handle most of their employee experience from their fingertips. So can you play with apps? How are you integrating that into your talent management strategy? It's part of Berson's predictions for 2016, along with these other 9. And you'll see that digital and tech is really playing a front level in what HR is doing to evolve itself, the data analytics of all of that. Can you make learning accessible, etc. So what are we going to do our 2 days here? We're going to explore all of these topics. This is why we've selected the speakers that we've chosen, and all of them have really great stories from the fields. They've been playing at the front edge of some of these ideas. They're going to be sharing what they're doing. They're going to share what worked, what didn't, lessons learned. And we want to give you a chance to also frame your own learning journey. So again, if you haven't yet opened up the PDF or you want to use the paper copy, we'll give you several moments throughout the conference. They're called insight activations. But there are going to be intentional 5-minute breaks after every 2 or 3 speakers for you to just stop and say, what were my takeaways? What were the key things that resonated for me? How might I translate that into my agency? So that when you go home, you actually have an action plan to work from, as opposed to going, wait, what did I learn? That was so much over 2 days. All right, so thank you very much. I'm now